I'm Sean. Behind me is a McLaren 720S, and today we're going to install an ISG delete plate. Now, what is this? Why is it used? And why should you have one? There is an ISG on this car, and it is short for Intake Sound Generator. It's a really fake sounding noise that gets piped through the audio system. And it's actually a real noise. It actually has a diaphragm that is bolted to the intake, and then that gets fed in. On 720s, when you put it in track mode, it goes to that. You can't adjust it. You can unplug it, but you can't adjust the sound in that. In other models like the 12C, 650, 675, there's an actual volume control and for which mode you have it in and that kind of thing. You don't have any of that in the other models. So the only thing you do to get rid of it is to delete it. So if you want to get rid of it, you can unplug it, or you can delete it. I recommend deleting because there's another problem that can happen. And you can't see it now, but you will in a moment. There's a potential air leak when the valve fails or the diaphragm and another piece of it actually fails. It's further in the system. You can see it in other cars better. There's just a hose that runs off. But I'm going to show you how to get to it, how to delete it, and it can potentially solve problems with unmetered air that's happening in the car. It can idle erratically, it can give some codes, poor fuel economy. There's a number of things that can happen when you have unmetered air. This is how you solve it. So let's jump right in. First things first, to get to this engine, you have to do the unthinkable, but it's really not that bad. You gotta take the glass out, and you gotta take part of the interior out. So depending which end you want to start on, doesn't really matter, inside or outside. I'm gonna start on outside. This piece has to be removed. Now remember, this is a coupe. On the Spider, it's going to be quite a bit different because you have the top that would fold in there. Similar thing, but you still gotta get in the same area. This is gonna be more specific for the coupe. So you gotta take this panel off, and to do that, we've got these little 4mm hex, or Allen, as some might call it, right down here. One straight down here. They're kind of hard to see through poor lighting and little mesh here. But if you go a little bit of an angle, those are spring loaded. Those kind of suck to deal with. All you gotta do, stick a tool in there, twist it, pops right out. These are just push in with rubber, so I'm gonna show you that. Now with this exposed, we have 5mm hex. We have to take these off. This little plate will come off with it. Don't lose it. They're not crazy torqued in here. You can do it by hand or you can use it with a tool. But you gotta back these guys out, and that's gonna make the back of the glass here loose. LOL JK, it's a 6mm, not a 5mm. Now for the inside. You do have more room if you slide the seats forward as well, but you definitely have to fold them forward because we need to get to the ceiling here. You'll notice we've got a little plastic piece right here. We're just gonna pop that out. It does matter which way you pull it out. So observe, one side has a little clip here. One side is a little bit different. Observe that because it does matter. It's the same on both sides. They are not specific to which side is which. And then we've got the other one right up here, and that's going to expose our T30 screws. Now you can see the T30 we got right there, and then another one right there, and this, which was a little bit loose, actually pops off. That is for the rear window defrost. I didn't have it pushed in there so well, but this screw and this screw need to come out. Same for the other side. Make sure you take note of which one goes where. That one obviously has to go there for here. This one has a washer on it. This one does not. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. Now that we've got all 4 inside screws, the 2 back screws, this piece of glass can come loose. You do not need 2 people to do it. You can if you want, but you don't need to. But what you do have to observe is those little pins that drop through. You got to make sure those come straight up. So you want to start from this end, push up from the inside, then you can grab the whole piece and remove the whole glass. Now with the glass removed, we take out the carpet, which isn't too bad. Might be leather in your case, but we take this piece out. You just grab it, it comes out. I don't know if I can do it one-handed. We're gonna try. So that is out, revealing 11 billion different screws. All of these screws are T25 because why wouldn't we have 3 different fasteners to get to this point? They're only around the perimeter. There are none in the middle. Note that if you have the luggage straps that are right here, when you go to take this panel off, you do not have to unscrew them, but you do have to unclip them to poke through that, and then they'll be left on here. That's what goes in these screws that I do not have on this car. Now the part in question, this guy. Normally you're not gonna have a clamp on here. I do, because for some reason, this decided to go that way and shoot off. So I put a clamp on it to ensure that that wouldn't happen again. But we'll take this clamp off, which again, you won't normally have. We'll slide this off, and then there are 3 bolts here, here, and then 1 down below. These are 8mm heads. We're gonna take this entire thing off, and as you can see, I've already disconnected the wiring on mine. Now remember, I already unplugged mine. The clip is right here on top. You just pull it up, slide it right back. This is the whole shebang-a-bang. On other models, this is slightly different. You have another thing that bolts on here, and that's usually the problem part. But if this valve is having a problem, be it electronic or whatever, that would be another reason that this would be a problem. So we are removing it, also because I hate it. So our plate is the same as this, except it's a flat plate with nothing on there. Now, as you can tell right here, there is a seal, and you've got to make sure this seal stays intact. It is not damaged. Everything's good there. If this is leaking, broken, whatever, this is not going to fix anything. So you've got to make sure that is good to go, not damaged. You may have also noticed I took 2 long bolts out and 1 short bolt out. I've got 2 others just like it, and when I start selling this as a kit, this is a prototype for testing fitment. When I start selling it, I will supply the bolts. So you'll have appropriate bolts to go in here, all 3 of them, because you cannot reuse these. Now this plate you may fumble with a little bit, getting flipped around the right way till you get it right. But this is the appropriate way if you're going right on there. So take a look at that. And we're gonna start with one bolt, and we're not going to tighten it all the way. We're just gonna get all the bolts settled in, twist them in by hand, keep them loose. If you tighten them, you may have troubles getting them lined up. And we don't want that. So now that we've got them loosely in here, we're going to tighten them up. Now these are going to be 7 foot-pounds by the spec of the bolt. I'm not exactly gonna do that. You can if you want to, but I'm gonna snug these up pretty tight, because what I do not want happening is those popping loose, and it's questionable on the amount of torque there. I found that you can just tighten these up, and it's not super critical. And remember, do not over tighten these. This is aluminum after all. They doesn't have to be crazy tight, but when you see it snug down to where it is flat on here, that is tight enough. That could be your gauge if you don't want to torque it. Just make it so this goes flat. It should crush in that seal that we had in here, and that's enough to seal it. Now I'm sure you're asking, what are you gonna do with the hose and the wiring harness? Those are just gonna sit there. If you wanna pull the whole thing out, you can. It's a lot more work. It essentially doesn't do anything. You can leave that hose wide open, not plugged off. It's not going to affect anything. And the plug itself doesn't plug in anywhere. You can tie it off if you want to. It's not gonna go anywhere, it's just sitting there. Now we're going to put this back in. It goes the same way it came out. You do have a little thing on the bottom that's insulation, so you're gonna have to slide it just a little bit to get it in there. And they were lined up. Now all these screws we're gonna put back in no particular order, but again, we're not going to physically tighten any of them as we do this. We're gonna get them started by hand. One, so we don't cross thread them, as some people do. And also, because we wanna make sure that they're all gonna line up, because if you notice, there's a little bit of play in this panel. So we're gonna make sure they're all gonna get lined up. Then we will go back and tighten them to no particular torque spec. The tool that I'm using is not exceptionally strong. You do not want to strip or over tighten these. I just go until they snug up and then pull off of that. So if you're going to use a 1/4 inch impact, just go to where it snugs. Don't get any ugga chuggas on it. Or if you want to be safe about it, do it by hand. You might notice there's a little bit of a bend in this, so it puts pressure on when it lays flat. As soon as it's laying flat and it's snug, you're good to go. Now with that plate in, we can put the carpet back in. Imagine that. You might notice that up here, there's a little slot that goes up under this side piece. It does need to slide under that to get this all the way back here, but should drop in pretty apparent. If you've got the strap on here, there's a little bit of a trick where you slide it in there and make sure you pull it back through this way so you can have your clip back in there. Again, this one does not have it, but some of you will. Now we can get the glass back in. We're gonna sit it straight down. Remember, we've got to get those little pieces that drop in here for the defroster. Those have to line up and go straight in there. As you can tell, this does flop around a little bit. So if you want to get this up here lined up, kind of generally speaking, you can hand tight these bolts back here, which will kind of keep it in line to line it up at the top. Observe your little clips and make sure that those are on there in the correct position as well. And remember, we aren't going full tight with these. Actually, this one might be a little bit. We want to make sure that it will still move around just a little bit, but it gets us pretty close. Now onto the inside. Remember, we've got these two screws. One of them has got to go around this guy. So you can get that lined up, which is a little easier to do with two hands, just so you know. But remember, it's got to go on there. We don't want to snug it up quite all the way because we want to get this in place. And then we can tighten that up after we get the other one in here. I do recommend hand tightening on both sides. So we're gonna do the same over here. And the reason for that, if we leave them loose, we can actually get them lined up a lot easier if it's slightly off. So we're gonna hand tighten the other ones, and I'm gonna go in and put these in. Again, no particular torque, but if you do it by hand, get it really nice and snug. If you do it with a tool, don't go past like one ugga chugga. These are not big screws. You don't want to pull the inserts out. These do not require a lot of torque. It's just there to hold the window in against the seal. Just make sure it can't back out. And in a shocking turn of events, my memory card got full. So we got that one popped in there. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And if it doesn't go in quite right, sometimes they're a little bendy, because somebody did it wrong in the past and they tried doing it backwards. If you do it backwards, it doesn't go up quite right. So this one's got a little bit of a bend in it. The other one doesn't. Make sure you put them in right so you don't have perma bend, but that should stay there. And I do often see those missing. Just a thought. Now I know what you're thinking. Forgot to screw these in. Nope. Make sure you go back and tighten these. Way easier with two hands, as that one will spin a little bit if you don't, but again, doesn't have to be super tight. Snug it up, make sure you get those back in there. And the last part of this job is going to be putting this panel back on. There isn't really a trick to it other than set it flat down on there, try to get these holes lined up on the screw. You may have to kind of wiggle it a little bit till it drops in. You know it's in correctly if it goes down and you only get about a quarter turn, it'll lock. So do that on both sides, and I'd show you doing that, but I can't mount my phone right now. Then push down on this straight down. And when it lays flat, you know you've got it all the way down. It's very important that you push this down because otherwise air can get under it and it can lift off. Now I've got this in place. This is sat way down in there like it should be. We are good to go. That is a successful ISG delete. I hope you found this video informative. Check out all of my other DIY videos. And this kit will be in the description below at some point, depending when you're watching this. So keep a lookout for that. I'll have different plates as well for the 3.8 liter cars. It is a different plate, so keep a lookout for those, and maybe I'll do a video on those in the future as well. So make sure you check out the other videos, hit like, subscribe, notification bell, all that other stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.